developers are really reverting to multifamily rentals from condos. Is that a temporary shift, or you see that as a longer-lasting thing?
Thank you. Is it a temporary shift? Well, anyone who's done business down in South Florida realizes it has a very cyclical nature, and I think at this time the sales side of things are not going as well, isn't as strong. So people are looking to place their investment in a little bit of a safer asset, which happens to be right now multifamily. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't say that there was no pipeline before. I just think that before we saw a lot more cranes for the condominium project, and now we're seeing them for the multifamily project on a long run. And we all know that down here, if that cycle turns again, mm-hmm. you'll see a lot of those buildings convert to condo anyway. So I think for now it's here, and we'll have to see in the next few years what happens.
Mm-hmm. Lissette, how about you? You just recently started 2 projects in Allapattah. Were condos even remote consideration? What would have to make sense today for condos to pencil out versus rentals?
Well, I think Jerry alluded to it. At the end of the day, I always tell everybody you make money on the buy, not on the sell. So your numbers have to pencil out from the very beginning. That said, I think it's also a very personal choice for me. Having been in the condo market and having started my career within the condo multifamily sector, it was a natural progression to go into the rental side. As you think about life and multi-generational holdings and kind of that long-term outlook and perspective, and wanting to make an impact on the community you're in, for me personally, I felt that it was just a greater impact mm-hmm. to be in the multifamily market. That said, of course, I do believe that, as the market turns, you're going to see some of the rental buildings that are going and underwritten as rentals possibly convert to mm-hmm. the condo side.
Let's talk to the 2 New Yorkers who just came to the market. Laurent, you just bought 3 different parcels, all rental?
All rentals. First of all, thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here and seeing a lot of friends in the audience. But yes, mostly rentals. Historically, we are very involved with multifamily. And I think that right now, the flavor is low interest rate environment, and that's going to stay like that for a while. And the rental business, the multifamily business, is actually a place where you can generate yield, which is not insignificant. Whereas in the condo business, as you know, you go in, hopefully you go out soon. But when you do, it's capital gain and the money's back and you have to reinvest it. Multifamily, you generate yield for many years. Mm-hmm.
So what is of the 3 sites, what's the first of those projects you plan to build? I think the Edgewater was a 1,100 unit rental project that's in an opportunity zone, right?
Correct. So we are buying 2 sites in Edgewater on Biscayne and 19th and 20th. And we can build indeed actually up to 1,500 units total. That one is going to go first. One of the we're going to start with phase 1, which will probably be 400 apartments. We have 2 sites in Wynwood that we will be developing over the next 12 months, I will say, we'll start developing. And then we just signed a contract to acquire 3 lots in Fort Lauderdale, which that one will take a little longer before we put a shovel in the ground.
Mm-hmm. And what led you to come to Miami in the first place, or South Florida in general?
We've been looking at this market for a while. It just happens that, how it is in real estate, you can work on a deal for a while before you actually close on it. Mm-hmm. And that's really what happened here. We've been looking at this particular submarket for 5 years. Mm-hmm. The challenge for us historically has been to find deals that were sizable enough for us to spend the time and effort. And we finally find some good deals recently.
Was any of the impetus at all based around the rent regulations in New York and the red tape and the very tenant-friendly policies that seem to be happening in New York and the Northeast and California now?
No. I mean, I think it's all happening at the same time, so I understand why you're asking the question. But not at all. And like I said, we started working on this 4 or 5 years ago, studying the market, understanding the different players, parameters. And so I think what's happening in New York City will probably lead to more investment in the future from the people who have invested in New York rental properties, but we'll see.
Michael, you recently branched out to Miami for the first time, buying the Raleigh and 3 acres in South Florida. Why now, and what are the plans there?
So first thing, thank you for having us here. Thank you. I don't know where Amir is, but thank you for letting us take over your entrance over there with our little jungle. First thing, before I answer your question, I want to address something that Lissette said. And she said an interesting comment. She said, you make your money on the buy. Now, it's good that we have completely different opinions because some people make their money on the buy. I'm probably the person that will tell you that you don't make money on the buy. You actually make money on the sell. You make money on the buy, but you make money on the buy because you buy great assets. And you asked why we came to Miami Beach. We didn't come to Miami Beach just because one day I woke up and I said, you know what, I'm sick of the cold weather in New York. Let's go where it's warmer, which, by the way,
that'd be a valid
fantastic,
reason.
right? Valid reason. I've tried to buy the Raleigh twice before. I think I told you that. Our investment theory is that you buy great assets. You know, great assets. The Raleigh for us is a great asset. We brought the South Seas and the Richmond, which are 2 contiguous properties, to develop 3 acres on the beach. But the idea is that if you own great assets, being at Fifth Avenue or Wilshire Boulevard or Collins Avenue on 18th Street, you really have almost no limit on where your upside is, as long as you build the right thing at the right place for the right person at the right time. I mean, you and I have been talking about this since 2005. I'm not going to pull up from my pocket the same answer I gave you 15 years ago. We've done that before. But Miami today for us is a market that I think we're only seeing the tip of the market. You're asking about the cycles and the ups and the downs, and it's great because now everybody's building rentals. So, you know, in a Shvo attitude, if everybody's building rentals, you should be building condos. Why do I need to compete with all these 3 great developers on building rentals where we can build condos in the best location in Miami? So I think there's a lot of different ways kind of to look at this market, but I think that if you ask why we came to Miami, we came for a very specific, asset. We're looking at buying more assets right now on the beach, but for us, Miami is really east of Collin in a very specific bullseye location.
So it's a very specific buy, and you're leveraging that buy. You got permission to build a 200-foot/20-story tower there. So what are the specific plans for that?
So I think we've been very lucky. People ask me, how is it to develop in Miami Beach? It's probably one of the greatest cities to develop. You have a mayor and you have a set of commissioners here that are really understand, I mean, at least from our point of view, understand development, understand how to help developer restore great old buildings, because at the end of the day, what the city wants is one thing. They want the great heritage of Miami Beach to continue. They want this timelessness of the real estate to continue, but they want it brought to kind of the next century, the next generation to enjoy them.
So would you go condo with that?
We will go, it will be a mixed use. There will be a hotel component. Raleigh will be a hotel component. There will be a condo component. As you said, we have 3 acres on the beach with 250 foot of beachfront. There's a lot of different components that go into that.
And more broadly, you said you're going to spend up to $500 million in Miami in the next year. I think that includes the purchases you've done already, but what are the broad plans? And that money is coming from a German pension fund, right?
Right, so actually, you almost got it right. So the Raleigh itself, the Raleigh development itself is just north of $650 million between the land development and the cost, which is a big investment for a single project on the beach in that location. We're very committed to Miami, and you're right, we've been very fortunate over the past 12 months. We bought almost $3 billion worth of real estate, New York, Miami, LA. You just mentioned we bought the Coca-Cola building on Fifth Avenue. With German pension fund money, the same partners that we've done, 685 Fifth Avenue, which are very committed to Miami Beach. We put out, as you said, we put out tremendous amount of money, and we are still committed here in Miami Beach to buy more assets if we can find the right assets.
And it seems like, just speaking of financing in general, a lot of the rental financing seems like it's coming from stalwarts like JP Morgan, Wells Fargo, as opposed to some of the condo financing, which was more Bank of the Ozarks and less known banks, before coming here. Lissette, what are you seeing as far as financing of your projects and underwriting rental projects?
Well, I think you're seeing a different, it depends, in terms of what the different asset class and so forth. I mean, you're seeing some of the fixed rate guys like, Fannie and Freddie, they've got, a directive right now for the next 5 quarters, so that's healthy. If you're looking at, for example, transitional assets like our Pier 19 project that we just bought last year, and that's, a $70 million transaction that we acquired as a value add, that came with, there was incredible interest in that. It was, the life companies, the traditional banks. You're looking at about 85% to leverage, 250 basis points over LIBOR. So there was incredible interest with that. That said, when you look at the construction loan industry, we just broke ground 2 weeks ago on our Allapattah 17 project. That's a 200-unit tower on Allapattah. It's the first lifestyle-driven project to break ground in the Allapattah neighborhood. Again, like Laurent said, you're in these neighborhoods 2-3 years before you actually put a shovel in the ground. So that said, in that market, you're seeing a lot more discipline. You're looking at, lenders that are really underwriting the deals. They're looking at who the sponsor is. And I think from a development standpoint, we as developers are taking a far more conservative approach, far more equity, less leverage projects, and they're making sure that the depth is there that you can withhold.
So in some sense, Allapattah is a fringe neighborhood, an emerging neighborhood. What sort of argument do you have to make to lenders, or case do you have to prove in order to get financing? Are they worried if a recession hits, that sort of thing?
Well, I think one of the things that we do is that our land basis is, very small compared to what other projects are doing. So again, and speaking to Michael, when I say I look at the land basis, I come in on a land basis that's 25% of what some of the other projects are doing. So that allows for flexibility in terms of the rents and the marketability that I can do, and the diversity of the market that I can target. That said, there's just definitely, how do I point them? The first time around, they said I was absolutely crazy when I spoke to the Miami River almost 20 years ago. I think now what I do is I point to the Miami River and I said, this is the story and this is what we're doing now. So I think it's, it's based on track record, it's based on character, integrity, all the things that have done. And, once you've been around and you've done it, but ultimately, as lenders, as equity partners, you look at the fundamentals and you have to show them why, in fact, they're doing it. When we talk about why Florida, you look at Florida. Florida is the 3rd largest state in the country. We've got net migration of $17.7 billion that came in. You've got states like New York that have $8.8 billion that left. We are now the 7th largest MSA in the country. We've actually gone past Philadelphia. We're ahead of, MSAs like Atlanta, Boston. We're ahead of Atlanta, San Francisco, so forth. So when you start showing some of those fundamentals and you show that you've got 38% compounded annual growth rate in the urban core, you show that everything that's been built has been absorbed, that the downtown's growing at 4% versus the rest of the market at 1.4%, and you show that to the lenders, that's how you build a case to what you want to do.
That's so important. I totally agree with you. The fundamentals work in your favor here in South Florida. 15 million people in 2010, 22 million people next year. Miami-Dade County, 2.7, 2.8 million, going to 3.3 by 2030. So it's happening, and it's one of the fastest growing states in the country.
Yeah, I think 900 new people a day.
Right, so it helps us as equity, of course, but also the lenders.
So I think, what we've been seeing historically on the condo side, that a lot of developers, and that's why there's been tremendous amount of development in Miami, is that there's a unique thing you can do in Florida, which is use deposits from buyers, right? That's so a lot of developers build these huge buildings, and some of the greatest developers in Miami through, in essence, funding it through buyer deposit. And, that's something that is unique to Florida and to some other states. We don't have that in New York. We definitely don't have that in LA. I think that there's obviously a lot of risk in that, and that's what drives a lot of the volatility. But I think that what you've heard from some of the other developers here, and what we subscribe strongly to, and just kind of to answer your previous question, is low leverage deals, right? So we don't finance more than 50%. We put tremendous 50 to 60% of financing. We put tremendous amount of equity in deals, and that's really what protects you if there is volatility in the market. At the Coca-Cola building, right, we put $400 million worth of equity in Miami. We bought the land. We have $200 million of equity and $100 million of debt, which is really reverse than what most people would do. But you have to have very specific partners to do that, right? When you have BVK, which is the largest pension fund in Germany, or Deutsche Finance, which is one of the largest fund-to-funds out of Germany, that really wants to put out money, you have the ability to do that. It's a very unique situation, and that we're very lucky that we're able to do that.
And just as you decide what to do with the 20-story tower there, what is your kind of take on what's happening in the condo market now? And this is a more general question. Inventory increased, I think it was 75% last year. There's currently 21,000 units on the market, condo resales in Miami-Dade and Broward. What's kind of the outlook there from the panel?
Anybody want to answer? You want me to answer?
You think it's going to
If
take
you
a while?
The answer is that I don't really worry about it, because we've discussed this, ad nauseum. It doesn't really matter what the market is. The market as a whole shouldn't be interesting anybody here. We care about, if you build unique product, if you build something special in the right location, you're not competing with somebody building something on Brickell or in North Beach or in Wynwood, right? If somebody wants to be on the beach on 18th Street for a very specific project, they don't have another option. So if they'd like that, they have to come to us to buy it. And if they're not buying it. So I'm not concerned. I don't lose sleep at night over, if there's oversupply, undersupply. These are things that I've been doing this for almost 2 decades. If every time you ask me that question, I'd be, losing sleep at night, I wouldn't be here today.
I guess you just got to pick the right location.
I think that's the same for any type of project. In any market, there's going to be submarkets where you're going to find that projects excel beyond other projects, whether it's in Allapattah or it's on Brickell. There will always be some submarket for some product that will work, no matter what the general economy is doing.
And Jerry, how about Panorama Tower? I mean, that's a high-end rental has units up to $9,000 a month. That's kind of a newish thing. You threw in a lot of amenities there. I think you had pet spas, home theaters, wine tasting rooms, porte cocheres, which I don't know exactly what that is. It's a French thing, but it sounds fancy.
I can explain.
It's a fancy canopy.
Yeah, okay. And how deep is that luxury renter pool?
Well,
And who is it?
I'll tell you, we saw in our market, and for years they were calling it shadow market. So it was those people who were coming into the condominiums that were sold and were renting them, and were getting some of the amenities. But the one thing, and they like these type of units because they were a little bit larger than your typical rental unit. Our average one bedroom is about 1,100 square feet, where a typical one bedroom is somewhere in the neighborhood of 800. So you get the size, you get walk-in closets, you get larger bedrooms. It's just more of a livable experience. And what you really get, which is different from the shadow market, so to speak, is you get service. So if you're renting a condo from somebody and your fridge goes bad, you might wait a week or two before that's fixed. You want this. If you're renting, you want to make sure that your refrigerator's up and running the next day, and we give that to them. And then because of the size of the project, we were able to give them all the amenities that they would typically get in a luxury condo building.
So you're taking what was a shadow market and essentially converting it to a real market.
We're converting the shadow market to the real market, and I think we're seeing a great depth for that. We're seeing a lot of people who are used to paying that type of monthly rent, who want the amenities, who want the larger units and the more luxury units.
And are you seeing that demand from baby boomers, millennials? You're hearing that baby boomers want to rent, millennials want to rent. It's going to be a more rental-focused demographic in the U.S. in general.
I would say we're really seeing it across the board. I mean, we're seeing everything there. Obviously, the baby boomer, millennial, that's a big group. But we were focusing on a certain criteria, 25 to 40. But we're getting people who are moving out of their homes, who want to live downtown and experience walking to the restaurants and bars and the cultural events. And so we're getting everything there.
So you have one bayfront, and then you have the Foster and Partners Tower. Those are both going to be taller than Panorama Tower. What's kind of the time frame for those, and what are the determinants in when you start to build and move forward?
On one bayfront, which is going to be a similar type of mixed-use product to Panorama, but larger, we're we're in the process of stabilizing Panorama, and once that's done, we'll move into One Bayfront. On Foster, I think we're going to look to see a little bit of a stronger condo market before we move into that.
And how leased up are you now at Panorama Tower?
I'm sorry, say that
Oh,
again?
I'm sorry. How leased up are you at Panorama? Is it 100% leased at this point?
No, we're moving into about 70 to 75% right now.
Got
So
it.
we're very happy with the pace. We're seeing 40 to 45 a month.
Great. Yes, Michael.
Sir, I just you asked an interesting question. I think you have to stop using the word demographic. Okay, that's my friendly advice to you, because the demographic don't matter anymore. They didn't matter, last year. They didn't matter 5 years ago. But as kind of the evolution, how the world evolves, demographic really mean nothing. The only thing that mattered today on the consumer, it doesn't matter if they're buying, if they're renting an apartment at Panorama, or they're buying at Edgewater or anywhere else. It's all about the psychographic. You have to understand the people. You have to understand where they eat, where they shop, where the vacation, what's their lifestyle. Because it doesn't matter. I could be 20, you could be 30, he could be 40. We could all have that same mindset. And it's the same thing when you ask where the buyers are coming from. The next question normally is like, are they coming from South America? Are they from Europe? It's really about who those people are, because the guy from South America and the guy from Turkey or the guy from Germany might have that same mindset. They all like to eat at Cipriani or at San Ambrose or at Casa Tua. It's about how they live their life that we all build buildings for. It's not just about, I don't think anybody here, responsibly will tell you, hey, we're trying to approach 20 to 40-year-old.
Right, right.
To
And you think
understand-
that's true for broader projects, not just niche projects like you typically work on?
I think that any developer today that's building a project that doesn't understand his consumer it's suicidal. That's our opinion. I might be over exaggerating this, but that's the only way that I understand how to do it. Because you can't go and invest $1 billion, $500 million, doesn't matter how much money you put in there, without really knowing who you're developing for. Just to say I'm building a building for people in their 20s to their 40s that live in the neighborhood and hope that they're going to come. That's why you see buildings don't rent. That's why you see buildings don't sell. I mean, we have a bunch of those in New York. We're not going to talk about that now, but that's where you see buildings that fail, because nobody sat there and really thought about, hey, who's going to use this kitchen? Who's going to shower in this shower? Who's going to sit in this living room? They said, let me hire some great architect and build a beautiful building.
Right.
That doesn't work anymore. It didn't work before. As people get a lot more educated today, between Twitter and Instagram and the way that people take information today, they see a lot more, right?
I guess you're allowed to. You can get much more granular in the social media age.
But the point is, a lot more.
But
The
I think
consumer is
that-
substantially more educated.
I don't think the question's a bad question, because I think traditionally it has been a certain demographic that's been looking to lease. So, you've had that whole idea of we'll lease, and then once I start a family or do whatever I want, I'll go and I'll own and I'll. But now,
By the way, I'm going to stop you because you just said something. You lease and once I start a family. So the psychographic there is you have maybe a couple that has no kids, right? That's the point. That's your buyer or your renter. It's not the fact that they have.
I'm actually agreeing with you. I think traditionally that's been the question, but now we're seeing it all. I have families. I put in a child's playroom in my building because I have a lot of families in there. I mean, it's not that way anymore. And Michael's right. You can't ask that question anymore, because renting is good for everyone now. Everyone sees a value in renting to some degree. People still love to own. Don't get me wrong, but a lot of people, at all ages, at all wherever they are in their life cycle, they are seeing a value in renting. That's now.
So what are the psychographics in the Miami Beach project? How do you define that market?
Asking me?
Yeah.
That's a complicated question. You don't have enough time on this panel.
Give me one or two bullet
to get
points.
into that. But the in general where we are, right, where we are on Miami Beach, we're really appealing to kind of, I would say, pied-à-terre owners, people that want to have a home in Miami Beach. It's not their primary home, but it's somebody that wants to kind of lock and go, wants to be able to go there, get every single service. But I'm talking about real service, not your typical doorman concierge. And you're lucky that the guy that's at the desk and can announce somebody that comes up. People that could take care of you in a hotel environment. And I think where we are today, luxury today, is all about service. We've seen every amenity. We've seen bigger amenities. We've seen bigger playrooms, basketball courts. I mean, they can't come up with more amenities. I mean, I've seen some crazy-ass things happening. At the end of the day, today, I think the wealthy consumer, not even the wealthy consumer, people in general are looking for service. Remember, again, I'm talking about the age of information. They get information all the time. People can't focus on their Instagram for more than 20 seconds. People don't have time. If you have 5 minutes, they want to look at their Instagram. They don't want to go and deal with carrying the packages indoor, outdoor, taking care of their pool. So the consumer today is looking for service. And I think that what you're going to see, we're doing it in New York and Miami and LA. You know, we're doing Mandarin residences in New York. We're doing something else in LA, which I won't tell you about. But we're going to do something similar here in Miami, is really understanding how we can serve the customers, how we can serve the people here at a totally different level so they don't have to think about anything. And I think if we can achieve that, that's how we achieve a substantial premium over everybody else in the market.
Can you tell me what you're doing in LA?
Amir, you want to take him off the stage?
Yeah, take you out to dinner. Lissette, do you agree with that psychographic approach? And how do you kind of conceptualize who's coming to Miami River or Allapattah when you're thinking of, who's filling your projects?
Well, that's always what I've said is, where I think about how it is, where it really becomes on the buy. You really have to build to who you believe is your market, and you have to be hyper-focused in terms of authenticity, local context, and so forth. My first project, Neo Lofts, which was on the Miami River, here I was a successful, what at the time was a successful young professional. I had a great job, had an Ivy League degree, but I had two options. I had the, very great option of living out in the suburbs, or I had the very unsexy option of living, in the urban core with my mom. I, of course, chose with my mom because it was free. But here I was, what was a very was a successful, young professional, and I realized that there was no product for someone like me. So I went ahead, having lived in New York City, having the benefit of traveling the world, and my favorite thing to do is travel and know other cultures and know other cities and see what works and what are the best practices. I knew that if I could build a project for someone like me, that there were consumers around there that needed this type of product. So, for example, one of the things that we created, at the time, none of the buildings allowed pets more than 20 pounds. I had a 65-pound Mastiff that was my child, and I knew I had to create a dog-friendly environment. So we created the first bark park in Miami. And that was how we went specifically after the market that we knew was being left out of the market. Allapattah, the same thing. I think there's great submarket, and I think there's appetite for all the different types of market, as long as you know who your consumers are and who you're marketing to. In my particular case, born and raised in Miami, I'm a first-generation Miamian. My parents immigrated from here, from another country. I'm the first person in my family to go to college. So, very much knowing who I am and who my roots are, I realized that there is a component within Miami that was being priced out. When 70% of the rentals are being built, to a higher price point, I knew there was a market of paraprofessionals and working professionals that wanted great quality, lifestyle-driven housing, but couldn't afford some of the prices out there. So I make sure that on a land basis, on a construction basis, I build to that.
When we're talking about psychographics and social media, how are you guys doing outreach now? What are some of the more novel things you've been doing to try to reach your audience? I know, Jerry, you guys targeted Brickellistas, which was a kind of phrase your company coined to target people in that area. Michael, you just put on a display in the front there, which is a kind of experiential kind of marketing, right? What other novel ways are you kind of getting the word out about your projects today?
Well, I think, we've all alluded to, when we all probably started our careers was very different than today. The age of social media has completely changed the game. Before, where there was, a lot of print type of ways that you got the word out. In the age of digital, in the digital world, that's how you do it. So of course, social media plays very much an important role. You curate the experiences that people are gonna have, because at the end of the day, this is experiential, whether it's retail, whether it's restaurants, whether it's hospitality, or whether it's residential, everybody's looking for that experience. That said, at the end of the day, really your product and your word is what follows you. So when people know that you're building quality, they come.
Yeah, Laurent?
I think the key is traffic, because you build a good product, it's great, but you need to bring people to come see it. So even if you have the best reputation, they may not know about your product, your tenants or your buyers. So you need to create traffic.
Mm-hmm.
So we spent a lot of money actually investing in technology that allows us to really attract traffic in all our submarkets. And our properties are often featured as on top of the page when you Google search for an environment in such or such a market, and that's key. Once they come in, if you are comfortable, you have a good product, then 50% of the job is done.
Mm-hmm. And how about in terms of brokers? Brokers I think would rather be selling condos, but if they have to be doing rentals, what kind of commissions and incentives are you offering? Are there any sweeteners you're offering today to bring renters to projects? Jerry, how about you?
Well, I think we first of all, we brought in Fortune, who was a typically a condo broker, and we brought them in to do our project. I think they've been doing great. We work with all brokers that come in, and we provide them a commission based on. We're actually doing 1, 2, and 3 year deals, which is helping us because of the size of our product. And I think that works to the benefit for the broker because they're able to get a bigger commission. I wanted to address one point on the marketing, and I think I agree with the traffic, but I think what I'm seeing now, and I'm certainly no expert in the advertising and social media, but I think what's really happening now is being able to really target to the group of people you're looking for. And while you're driving traffic, you can drive better traffic, because there's traffic. And then there's traffic that may not be the right for your product. So I think we're seeing now an ability really to start targeting to our customers, whoever that might be. Once you get to know who they are, then you can really target to those people and drive the right kind of traffic in.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So Stuart, I think you asked this group about social media. Do you know how old everybody here is? Do you think anybody here can give you the right answer?
Mm-hmm.
We are all too old to give you the right answer to this question. But it's, jokes aside, it's a real problem. Social media, the world we live in today, from the digital world, is putting everybody in kind of in a bit in shambles. Everybody's scrambling to figure out what to do. And the problem is, you can figure it out. But once you figure it out, that's already doesn't make sense anymore, because something new is coming up in these new systems. Interestingly enough, and we have a marketing team, and we've been obviously focused on marketing for a couple of decades. But interestingly enough, probably the people that do social media better than anybody else in real estate is the real deal.
Thank you.
You guys, and I'm saying this really because in my team always says, you guys have this unbelievable kind of social media platform. You get a lot of interesting kind of posts up there, but you get people engaged, and it's never the same. And what amazes me, and this is something that I always say to my people, look at The Real Deal, which started as a newspaper, whatever it was, 15, 20 years ago. Today they have the highest household income from any digital reader. That's amazing. That's really amazing when you think about it. And it's a lot, I think, today has to do with social media. You're reaching the right people. So if anybody wants to understand how to do social media, they should come to you to learn.
Thanks. Well, I've found, at The Real Deal, and I think this holds true for real estate too, is, you have to hire somebody who has just been at Facebook, or has somebody who's trained with somebody who's just been at Facebook. This knowledge just passes virally and, anecdotally from person to person. It doesn't exist in any one place where you can access that knowledge in a course or anything like that. So, and it, like you said,
is that in 2 years you have to hire a new person, because what that person knew is not relevant anymore.
Or they have to go to a lot of conferences and keep up with everybody else who's still working at Facebook.
But the one issue when you talk about luxury product, I think there's a big challenge right now. And if you look at luxury brands, if it's Hermes or Cartier, people are throwing tremendous amount of money at social media, because nobody really can figure out how do you communicate something that was textile, something that used to have huge, beautiful advertising, into a screen that's this small. And forget about the screen that's this small. You don't look at it for more than a second if you're lucky, right? Because it's your story on Instagram or or as quick as you go. And how can you get people's attention? And you're right, the right people. How do you get the right people? And as everybody says, how do you get the traffic? How do you get people's eyeballs on your project? Is something that is really evolving. And I think that you can social media. There's a lot of people that are not doing it right. You really have to figure out how do you communicate that one sentence, that one idea, and continue to communicate it in the different platform without trying to go with different campaigns all over the place. You got to continue saying the same thing. We know we have a president that got elected by saying the same thing again and again. We should learn from that, because that is that's true marketing.
That's great. And Laurent, I want to ask you, we're going to have to wrap up soon. We have Secret Service agents milling around, and Ben Carson is going to take the stage in 3 minutes. But Laurent, I want to ask you, one of your projects is in Edgewater. It's in an opportunity zone. What is kind of your outlook there? How does the opportunity zone fit in, and was that part of penciling it out?
Okay, it was not part of penciling it out. In other words, we identified the site before understanding it was in an opportunity zone. I believe opportunity zones are a great feature. I think it's a great form of investment. It's been hard. You don't see too many deals that have taken place in opportunity zones. I think people are still trying to understand how it works. I've spent quite some time understanding. I think it's really efficient. It was just not part of this particular deal.
So that's a nice bonus you got there.
It's a nice bonus if we wanted to flip it, I guess. But we're long-term owners, developers.
And how about your project in Fort Lauderdale? You bought right next to the Virgin train station. How much have you seen, or how much evidence have you seen as far as transit tying into the project and being, a selling point for the project? People living there and commuting elsewhere via the train, for example.
Yeah, as I said earlier, it was really part of our study of this particular submarket, and sorry to use the word demographics, but the growing population, and Broward is the second largest county, as you know, in Florida in terms of population. Lots of growth. So clearly the location was key here, and we're very, very excited about this project. We're going to develop approximately up to 2.5 million square feet.
Last question. What are your guys' concerns in the next 12 to 18 months? Are you doing any sort of land banking, buying land now, planning for the future? What's kind of on your radar as we move forward?
So land banking, it's always a term you have to use loosely, especially if lenders are in the room. We do not do land banking. We have lent to people who want to do land banking. I think it's been a great opportunity for us to use our lending platform. No, for us, it's about finding good projects. We're very opportunistic. So it's interesting because, you make money on the buy, you make money on the sell. Maybe, we should all talk here, but for us, it's finding the right opportunity, the right basis. We capitalize our deals so that we can really weather any storms and look to own them long term.
Great. Well, I think we're going to wrap it up there. I want to thank all these guys. Good input.
Thank you.
Don't use the word demographic.